As loan officers, if we get more referral partners, we get more leads, and if we get more leads, we close more deals. I think we've all come to that realization. But then we all ask ourselves the same thing, which is, how do I get new referral partners? How do I get more people referring me? And then we go out there and we build our relationships and we meet a bunch of people, and then we realize there's another problem, which is, how do I solidify my existing referral partners or relationships with those referral partners and make sure that I stay top of mind so they continue to keep referring me over and over again. My name is Eric Braun, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how you can get new referral partners as well as solidify your existing relationships. And if you're wondering, why should I listen to this guy? Me and my team have funded over $1 billion in loan volume, and mostly all from referral. This is our Grow and Solidify series. This is our 3rd episode. This series is all about giving you one strategy, or each episode of the series gives you one grow strategy and one solidify strategy. So let's get right into it. The grow strategy that we're going to be covering in this episode is how to turn listing agents into referral partners. Just imagine if you can turn every single deal into an opportunity to make a new referral partner, what that can do for your business. And this is one of those opportunities that's a really low-hanging fruit. It's not something that you need to, completely go out of your way and do or learn new skills or anything like that. We're going to cover some practical stuff that you can do, but for the most part, especially if you're already doing deals and have some deals in your pipeline, this is a great way where you can multiply your business. Before we get into the actual strategy though, you need to remember that there's no replacement for being really, really good at your job. And it's going to be an uphill battle if you aren't, to build relationships in general, especially with listing agents on your transactions. So nothing is going to replace, being great at communication, being a problem solver, knowing how to show up when shit hits the fan, and just realize that not only can you never replace that, but also everybody has room for improvement. Even top producers. Don't believe everything on social media. Top producers have made mistakes. They fall short. They have things to work on. They have rough deals as well. But what separates top producers from your everyday loan officer is they know how to show up in those situations, and they don't let those rough situations deter them from building a relationship. Because I'll tell you right now, some of the roughest deals have led to some of my best referral relationships, because I showed up properly and worked through a tough situation and let all parties know exactly what was going on throughout the whole entire thing. So just realize being good at your job is going to be great for building your referral relationships. If you have room for improvement in those areas, here's your sign. You can work towards them, and everybody has. So now let's get into the actual strategy. So the one thing you have to understand, the mindset first. Every single deal, you have an audience watching how you perform. And then once you understand this, you'll understand why it's so important to show up and continue to show up. Every single deal, you have an audience. You have your buyer's agent, the borrower themselves, but you also have a listing agent, attorneys if you're in a attorney state, the title company, etc. Everybody on that email chain. And once you understand that, if you really, really focus on providing an excellent service, your audience may turn into new referral partners. All right, so let's get into the strategy. There are 8 listing agent touch points, okay? If you understand these 8 touch points with the listing agent and these 8 milestones throughout the process, you'll be able to slowly but surely build a relationship and build rapport with that listing agent. Okay. Now, just like all of the growth strategies that we've covered, the result should always be to try and get a one-on-one meeting to convert that referral or realtor into a referral partner. You're never going to build relationships by just doing these 8 touch points, but if you do these 8 touch points with a one-on-one meeting in mind, you're going to see a lot of results. So the first touch point we're going to cover is what we call our offer call. So this is something that was talked about across the industry for many years, but it's when a loan officer kind of reaches out to the listing agent proactively when their buyer makes an offer on that listing. And the purpose of that offer call is to hopefully set your buyer's offer apart from all of the other competition, because we're in a tight inventory market for most of the country. Now, this call not only may help you solidify a new contract or get that buyer that house, but it's also your first impression with the listing agent. And if you're making these offer calls, you're probably one of the few in your market that are actually reaching out to the listing agent instead of waiting for the listing agent to reach out to you. So just making the phone call already puts you ahead of the game, but kind of conducting that in a way where you're planting seeds to build a relationship with that listing agent is also going to serve as a dual purpose and for what we're talking about today, which is building a relationship with the listing agent. So how does that sound? I have a script here. You can reach out to me if you want a copy of it. But essentially, you're going to reach out to the listing agent, say, hey, I was calling about your listing 123 Main Street. I always like to reach out to the listing agent to see if you have any questions regarding the financing. Obviously, making sure that these deals get to the closing table and your seller the best terms on this house is your priority. So just want to reach out and see if you had any questions regarding the financing. You can handle all sorts of objections, which is, maybe low down payment is a concern of the listing agent. Maybe the condition of the property is raising some concern about, appraisals or anything like that. So you're going to handle all those objections. And then at the end, hey, regardless of if my client gets this house or not, as you can see, I'm very proactive, and I'm sure that partnering up with a loan officer that is this proactive on your client's offer is probably going to add value to you and your business. So at the very least, I'll send you my business card. If you ever need me, let me know, right? And you can keep it very open-ended like that. And this is where follow-up comes into play. But let's say that deal goes into contract. You now have 7 other touch points to impress that listing agent. But that first one, the offer call, is going to be your first impression. So hopefully that's helpful. The second phone call is your contract call. So this works a little bit differently in every state because we all have different processes. But in New York, there's the offer. Once the offer is accepted, then the client goes into, or the buyer goes into contract. When we receive that fully executed contract, we then start working on the loan. I always like to, when I get a fully executed contract, I always want to make sure to reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, I got this fully executed contract. I'm excited to work with you. I'm going to make this as smooth as possible. And at the very least, if any problems arise, I'm going to pick up my phone. Ha ha ha, chuckle, and because they know that most loan officers run and hide. So I even throw out there that if problems arise, I'm going to handle them properly because real estate is problems. Everybody understands that. And we're obviously going to do our best to avoid them. But if problems arise, you can reach out to me. This is my cell phone number. I'm also going to be ordering the appraisal today because one of the key things that's on every listing agent's mind is making sure that appraisal goes well. So let them know, hey, I got the contract. I'm going to be here. You let me know if you need anything. I'm going to order the appraisal shortly. I'm either going to put you as the point of contact for that, or maybe it's the buyer's agent for the point of contact. Just let them know that that's being ordered because that's one of the main things that's on their mind when the deal first goes into contract, making sure that that goes well. So that's your contract call. Now, I normally like to take that opportunity, especially because now I'm working a deal with them and it's now my second conversation, maybe even third conversation with them. If there's maybe some back and forth about the offer, I always like to add that realtor on social media. And this is where social media can be a multiplier for you. Social media is looked at as a way to get new referral partners, as a way to maybe get new clients, but it kind of can be a part of every single facet of your business. Whether it's this listing agent chase strategy, or maybe it's staying top of mind to your past clients, social media is going to help with all of these different areas, and this is a perfect example. So I like to add the listing agent. This is the third touch point. I like to add the listing agent, on Facebook, on Instagram. Maybe I do a little, flirting on their post. Hey, nice house, because they just listed something else in the neighborhood. Maybe shoot them a message and be like, hey, we just talked on the phone. I figured I'd shoot you a follow back. And guess what? If you never talk to that listing agent again, at least now you guys are connected on social media. And guess what? Maybe a year from now, when you never sat down, you never approached them, they reach out to you with maybe a save me deal, which has happened to me a ton of times. So that's your third touch point for listing agents. Fourth is the appraisal back call. Again, very big concern of all listing agents, making sure that goes well, that goes smoothly. I always like to call the listing agent and say, I got the appraisal report, nothing to worry about, it's good to go. Let me know if you need anything. Remember, all of these conversations, you can kind of just be casually throwing in there that you are intentionally trying to build a relationship with them. Don't be weird about it. Be transparent about it, because at the end of the day, they know that you want to do business with them. And just saying, hey, I'm going to perform really well. I'm going to treat every client the same way that as we go through this process, you're going to see how I work. So just throw it in kind of casually to all these different touch points. But anyway, so that's your fourth touch point, is the appraisal back call. Now, if it comes in bad or there's something, now it's about how you show up in those situations. Like I said, that's something that's out of our control. The fifth listing agent touch point, and again, this is one of those that may be a little bit different in your market, is I always like to reach out to the listing agent when I'm about to lock a rate. Because in New York, we have what's called on or about dates, which is, it is exactly what it sounds. It's a closing date that can happen on or about. So it can be before, it can be after, and the troubling thing about that is you can be clear to close, the buyer can be ready, and the on or about date is the 30th, and it's the 25th, and you want to lock, but the seller has 30 days after the on or about date to actually close. So we always like to kind of reach out to the seller side and see, hey, are we still tracking for that on or about date of the 30th? I'm about to lock the rate, and the last thing that I want to do is lock the rate, and then we run out of time on that lock term, and then I have to charge for extensions, etc. And every listing agent really, really understands that, because in our market anyway, they've all been in a position where the buyer's ready, but the seller's not, and the buyer locked their rate, and it just sucks. It's just a high pressure sort of situation. So I always like to reach out at that lock. So that's the fifth touch point. The sixth touch point is you're clear to close. So when you're clear to close, make sure that you're reaching out and letting the listing agent know that you're clear to close. Don't let that good news, you have to take advantage of the good news, right? So if you have an opportunity to call everybody on the transaction and tell them that it's clear to close, and you got time to do so, make sure you're taking advantage of that opportunity. And, hey, will you be attending the closing? Are you going to be there? And that leads to the seventh touch point, which is the closing. Now, I know there's some debate around whether loan officers should go to closings. If you're available and it's nearby, I think it's a great use of 30 minutes. You don't have to sit there for the whole entire time. You can pop in, pop out, and it could be a great time to connect with that listing agent. If they're there, take a photo with them, tag them on social media. I bet you they repost it. Now, guess who follows realtors? Other realtors. So now you're doubling down or taking, you're making the most out of that time at that closing. Hopefully the listing agent goes, and then that's why this is the seventh listing agent touch point. And then eighth, last but not least, is your one-on-one meeting. So throughout the first 7, you should be talking about, hey, let's grab lunch. Hey, I want to earn your business. Hey, whatever your standard is. But that 8th touch point is obviously so important, because you're only going to go so far on that one transaction. And guess what? When it's closed, if you don't do any follow-up, they forget about you. So that's the Grow strategy for this episode. Try to turn every single listing agent into new referral partners, and you're going to multiply your business. All right, here's the Solidify strategy for this video. And it's one of those low-hanging fruits again. It's a missed opportunity. It positions you as an expert, which is always good when you're trying to build a referral business. And this is the strategy of sending market updates, specifically to your referral partners. Although you can double down on this and send it to maybe your pre-approved clients, maybe some long-term nurture clients, whatever stage you want to, or whoever else you want to add to this email blast and or text blast, it's going to be helpful. Now, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is when? How often am I doing this? When am I doing this? I think the easiest way that doesn't really tie you to maybe something, let's say weekly, is whenever something happens that's noteworthy, whether it's a Fed meeting, an economic report that came out that changes interest rates or affects the interest rate market drastically. Maybe it's a industry headline. Maybe it's something with the new administration implementing something in housing. Use the news as your anchor to how often you do this and when you do this. The reason I say that is because with any of these strategies, it's unless you're extremely disciplined, which if you are, I salute you and I'm jealous of that. But any of these strategies, whether it's creating content, reaching out to realtors, cold, whatever it may be, sometimes it's hard to say, I'm going to do this weekly, right? Because we know our business. Shit hits the fan, we get pulled in a million different directions. But if you say to yourself, I'm just going to send a market update when something happens in the market that calls for it, whether it's a CPI report that throws interest rates up or brings interest rates down, or it's a Fed meeting, that's a little bit more manageable and palatable for you to do on a consistent basis. So that's the when. Is whenever, I would recommend whenever something happens in the market that's noteworthy. Then the next is how. And I'm going to give you guys the cheat code right now, which is hire a full-time assistant to help you build your market updates. And that full-time assistant is called ChatGPT, okay? Which is great because it's free. What I do is whenever something happens, let's say it's CPI numbers come out and throws interest rates into a frenzy. I find a good article that I like from a reputable news source. I copy the link to that article. I throw it into ChatGPT and I say, and the prompt sounds something along the lines of, hey, I'm a loan officer. I want to add value to my referral partners by letting them know what's going on in the market. Please write a newsletter style email that outlines the cliff notes of this article or something of that nature. So I prompt ChatGPT, and guess what I get back? A full breakdown of that article, and I'll say things like, hey, make this digestible, make it easy to understand, maybe not only take the information from this article, but just teach them the basics of how CPI affects interest rates, so include something like that in there. And maybe I go back and forth, do a few volleys with ChatGPT, 1, 2, 3, done, my newsletter's done. And I don't need to be an expert copywriter, I don't need to be a market expert, I just take kind of the already written articles about what just happened, put it into ChatGPT sends me an email or creates an email for me. Then you take that email and guess what? You get either MailChimp or maybe you use your CRM. So our CRM allows our loan officers to send a bulk email or bulk text message. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll double down on the email with a text message that says, hey, I sent you an email of a market update about the CPI numbers that just came out. I hope you get value out of it. So I'm making sure to increase the open rate of that email. But literally in maybe 20 minutes of your time, you could, probably less than that, you can create that email, get it out to your referral database, maybe send a text blast as well saying, hey, I sent you an email, hopefully it's valuable to you. And guess what? That realtor thought of you that day. And again, like I said in the beginning in the intro, when you start building relationships, sometimes the hardest part, especially once you get good at it, is keeping your existing, not getting new ones. And this is a great, easy, low-hanging fruit way to stay top of mind with your current referral partners, and you can use it as a past client marketing strategy or an active client marketing strategy. So I hope this Solidify strategy was very helpful. If you guys want the scripts on these offer calls or the script of the lock call or whatever it may be, I have it all written out. You can reach out to me, and I hope this was helpful.